Hello. Today I will finally be commenting on the Royal Navy Tier 9 cruiser, the Neptune. Now, I personally didn't feel like making this commentary until I had some more experience with this ship, and since the test ships were taken away before I got an adequate number of games, in my opinion, to make a commentary on it, I decided to wait until I unlocked it myself on my main account and got to play it. In fact, I've now unlocked the Minotaur, and I think I clocked about 28-29 games in the Neptune, and my average is a bit over 100k, which is, I consider, fairly good considering I didn't go for any optimal divisions like all the time. I'm pretty sure that in this ship you can easily break even over 100k average damage if you go for optimal divisions. Like, for example, always divisioning up with the US destroyer will make your scores much better, because then you'll have access to permanent smokes, which will make life much easier for you and will enable you to farm significantly more damage than that. But ultimately, even without going for any sort of division perfect stat farming, I consider this, first of all, I consider the numbers I'm putting up in the ship very solid, and overall I have no choice but to simply call this a very strong cruiser. It's honestly, it has its weaknesses, but it has some very distinctive strengths. Now, first of all, the concealment with Concealment Expert and the module is 10.1. That's not great. I mean, you still have stuff like Atago that can beat it, but I mean, Atago is a bit of a special case, isn't it? But you have others like New Orleans and Baltimore's and such that can sneak in and surprise you. So it's not top tier concealment, considering how squishy it is and how much it needs its stealth, but it is good concealment. That must be said, it is good concealment. The HP pool is okay at 45k HP. It doesn't really feel like 45k HP though, because you pretty much only hit citadels. Your citadel size takes a massive leap from the Edinburgh, where you have this flat waterline following citadel that's not as ridiculously easy to hit, but as this one is, because when you get to the Neptune and the Minotaur, your citadel actually gains this bump in the middle of the ship right under the smokestacks, where it rises significantly higher than the water level itself, and that means you are very easy to citadel in this ship. So that means like in the past you could perhaps engage in some open fights, but when it comes to the Neptune and of course the Minotaur, you will need to play significantly more stealthy. Now in this case, I like to play aggressive, as I am quite known for. I would reckon. I push into B because they only have one DD, and I reckon if I face him in B I can take him on. Now the enemy has an Essex, but I'm not too worried, because one of the strengths that I mentioned this ship has is the anti-air. When you spec into manual AA, the anti-air on this ship is absolutely god tier. It is incredibly strong. I will even add a clip, I think, after this, if there's no good examples in this clip while I'm shooting down these Essex planes. I will even add one afterwards just to show you how utterly wrecked a CV can get simply by flying near you, because these high caliber anti-air guns scale incredibly well with manual AA. Now that's of course one of the strengths. The other strength is this is another massive leap in damage for the Royal Navy line. Much like when you go from the Leander to the Fiji, where you basically gain 50% more DPS, you gain an almost similar jump, not quite to that level, but you go from the Edinburgh's 7.5 second reload, you go to the Fiji and you get a 4.4 second. That is if you use the reload module, which I highly recommend, and which is a staple part of my build on this ship, is using the quicker reload module. In fact, I use it on most cruisers, with a couple of exceptions like the Des Moines and the Zao, who benefit greatly from the range. But on this one, the reload module gives you a juicy 4.4 second reload. So you basically have the same guns with the same shells, everything is very similar, but your reload drops from 7.5 to 4.4, and that naturally translates into a massive damage increase. Of course, you also have torpedoes. This time, instead of having a single launcher on your side, you have two launchers on both sides, which of course mean that you are a much bigger torpedo threat as well. Another great thing. Now I'm trying to land some fire on this. Oh, what is this Edinburgh doing? Oh boy, this guy's taking some huge risks. You see, the Edinburgh Citadel, if that would have been a Neptune, that would have been pure Citadels right there. But the Neptune has actually, but the Edinburgh and the lower tiers don't have that high sticking Citadel. But if that would have been a Neptune or Minotaur, that first volley would have been nothing but Citadels, I reckon. Oh, he already got killed, fair enough. It's still, of course, incredibly squishy and you can't do the kind of moves he did there. Trying to land some plunging fire on this Ibuki. Some of you might have seen the Q&A that VG did recently where they claimed that this has excellent plunging fire against enemy cruisers. Well, that has become a bit of a meme and a joke because that's complete bullshit. The plunging fire is pretty goddamn shit against cruisers, or pretty much everything really. I mean, 1 hit, 4 bounces, so much for the excellent plunging fire, I guess. But you do significant damage against battleships when you get to use that plunging fire. Now, of course, I'm actually using the torpedo reload on the Neptune because these torpedoes are so strong and I kind of end up spamming them all the time as I'm sitting in smokes. So why not? They add so much additional damage, and I've gotten 100k damage just off the torpedoes in the ship. You have so many of them, you can launch them continuously. It's very, very strong. Lots of planes engaging. You can see I'm not even focusing these planes because I'm too focused on this York, but I'm still shooting down the squad that's fighting the enemy squad. I'm now starting to focus fire some of the planes because they're going for my Iowa body here in FTD. I'm clicking down the planes one at a time, but you still see how squishy I am. 1 hit, I lose almost all my HP. Continuously shooting down these planes, but honestly, I don't think my focus fire was too good there, mostly because I was too distracted with basically trying to survive. Even this York is a huge threat to me, simply because he's close enough that his AP can absolutely wreck me, and that's something I'm watching out for. Trying to get him killed as quickly as possible so I can just slip into stealth. Gave a bit too much broadside, instantly punished with citadels, and that's kind of the life of the Royal Navy cruisers. Shot in the smoke, luckily no citadel because I stopped in time, but you have to be incredibly careful in this ship. Luckily the heal is very strong and you can heal a large chunk of your citadel damage in this ship, but overall you just have to. Unlike the earlier ships where you could somewhat fight outside of your smokes, when you get to the Neptune and when you get to the Minotaur, it's no longer an option at all. You hide in smokes, and then in between smokes you kite away and you hide behind landmasses. You hide anywhere you can, you go take maximum range and shoot from there until your smoke refreshes. This is why I say, by the way, that these are incredibly good with DDs. In fact, I played some games with FTD playing as a Fletcher, and the synergy between this ship and a Fletcher is absolutely amazing because I get the long duration USDD smokes, which are absolutely fantastic, and I provide him with help against all enemy DDs, and I provide him with hydroacoustic surge, which renders us pretty much immune to torpedoes. So that combination is absolutely fantastic, and there's great synergy there. This ship also synergizes extremely well with carriers because of how strong the anti-air is. I played some with Blizzard plane carrier to test it out, and whenever any planes were nearby, I would just instantly slaughter them. It didn't matter how unfavorable the fight was for him, as long as it was within my AA range, it was just a complete plane slaughter. So those are the ships it synergizes extremely well with. Battleships, not so much. You don't really have much to work with there. I mean, you can give it some AA cover, but in general, you're not really that good at smoking up your body, because the smoke puffs are so small, and the bug with the smokes is still present in the game, which is a huge minus. The Royal Navy, for those that aren't aware, the smoke bug with the Royal Navy right now is that sometimes when you're slowing down and you're popping your smoke, you don't actually get 2 puffs, you only get 1 puff of smoke, or occasionally one of the puffs of smoke actually spawns behind your ship instead of like right on your ship as it's supposed to. And this of course can get you killed, and it is extremely frustrating, especially when it happens right at the start of the game. You sail into a good position, you slow down to smoke, and then your smoke bugs out and you're sitting right there in the middle of the open, everyone can see you, and you're basically sitting still full broadside to the enemy, and the smoke bugs and you get killed. And that is an extremely frustrating experience, and it has happened to me, and I've seen it happen to others as well. It's these new smokes that this Royal Navy use, these short duration ones, they obviously haven't been fully tested, so they tend to glitch out and do that stuff occasionally. Very frustrating, but hey, what can you do? Because apparently these ships simply had to be released right then with no further delays. Who knew? But the Neptune itself is a strong ship, as I said. You have the squishiness, but you kind of offset this squishiness and concealment issue. As I said, the concealment isn't stellar, but it's okay. You kind of offset these simply by having so much damage. You have so much damage in the form of your guns, so fast firing, you have so much anti-air, and you have so much torpedo power. So it's kind of like a boat made of paper, but then they mounted a bunch of anti-air, a bunch of guns, and a bunch of torpedo launchers on it. And it's a pretty interesting concept. I mean, once again, a lot of damage can be mitigated by angling, but you simply have so much damage at this point that you no longer feel as crippled as the lower tier Royal Navy cruisers did. Because when the lower tier Royal Navy cruisers try to do this stuff, they don't have enough damage to offset the squishiness and the vulnerabilities. But when you get to these higher tiers, you start to basically have just so much oomph that it doesn't matter how squishy you are, as long as you're not shot at or not detected, then you can still make it work. In here we have a battleship that's angled at me, and it's actually amusing. You do more damage to angled battleships than pretty much anything else, simply because they have so much superstructure you can shoot at. So you can just spam all these shells at the superstructure, which is of course what I'm doing to this Iowa. He's very much angled, but I'm aiming for the superstructure. Yes, I know people are gonna tilt at me for saying at Iowa. I don't care. You can tilt all you want. At this point I find it amusing. But you can see I'm actually getting some very, very good sustained damage on this guy. Are my torps actually going to hit? No, he's going to turn broadside. But once again, this isn't that much of an issue, because by turning broadside, he lets me pump out even more damage on him. He dodges the torps, but in return, he takes these 5k volleys from me. Oh, I actually didn't dodge them all. Never mind, he got killed. The torps are, of course, very, very strong. This game is actually quite close. We were 4 versus 6 when I killed him. Now we're 4 versus 5. So this isn't the clear-cut game that I was expecting. My smoke is about to run out fairly soon. Trying to get some damage on this Ibuki. Getting some damage in. Getting ready to move out of my smoke, because once again, Royal Navy smokes, they don't last as long as US smokes do. Let's see. The enemy in DD is on some sort of mission. I think hunting our carrier, of course, but considering I'm playing with Reite, who's a very experienced carrier player, there's no way he's going to be sitting in spawn by this point of the game. He's obviously moved to a completely different location by now. I'm hoping this Tirpitz will keep his current course, because I'm about to get sandwiched from multiple angles. There's a Mayoko up north, there's this potential for this Ibuki. There's the Tirpitz flanking from here, so I'm kind of pushing in deeper, hoping I can get my torps on this guy. Lost vision of him now, so I actually don't know if I can get my torps in. I wanted to turn hard left to torp with my other torps as well, but I don't think I have time to do that, because this Tirpitz decided to turn in, and turns out the prediction on the torpedoes was entirely wrong. Well, this is awkward. I have to angle against him, of course. My smoke is going to be up in a second, angling straight at him, just to make sure I don't get, hopefully don't get deleted instantly. Pop Hydro in case he's popping torps. And pop my smoke. He had HE loaded, I think, which is extremely fortunate for me, because otherwise I think he would have deleted me there. So I pop, I start reversing. I have Hydro active in case he's torping. I'm hoping to get torpedoes off again, but I'm also worried of what's popping up behind me. But you can see, when it get Tirpitzes, and in general, German battleships are fairly good sources for the Royal Navy. Oh, here's torps coming as expected. Those two cruisers are pushing me from that side. As I was saying, German battleships are actually a fairly good source of damage, because they have so much superstructure for you to shoot. Let's see, I'm gonna pop out a smoke because I want to see what's coming at me from the left. Oh shit. Okay, so both the Ibuki and the Mayoko is coming from the left. That is very much not good, because I have to move now. Because there's potential torps coming from the Tirpitz, and there's probable torps coming from the Ibuki and Mayoko, so I can't stay in the smoke. It's guaranteed suicide to sit in the smoke and just wait. So I'm gonna see if I can finish off this Tirpitz, and then I'm gonna see if I maybe can get torps off on the Ibuki. I'm plane spotted though, so it's going to be fairly YOLO. I mean, I'm surrounded from every side. I managed to get the Myoko though, and I get my Kraken, trying to get some torps off of the Ibuki, but the Turpets torps get me. I was probably going to die regardless. Still, 197k damage and the Kraken, and my contributions were enough to secure us the win at this point. The game ended soon after this, and as you can see, I got a significant amount of money and XP for it, of course, since I had a good performance overall. The lack of citadels, not really surprising, because these shells have such a large arc. Like if you're getting citadels, it's mostly because people are point blank close to you. Now, top the scoreboard, always nice. 13 planes shot down, not that many honestly, considering the ship I'm in, but these kind of plane kills are very, very common in the Neptune. Because your AA is simply such a force to deal with. Ultimately, you can see the damage. Torpedoes added a bit, but the majority came from the AP shells in general. And of course the final modifier screens. Anyway, I promised an AA example, so let's move on to that. Alright, this is a pretty classic situation. I see carrier planes approaching, I start slowing down, and I smoke up. I pushed up to help the Shimakaze cap this objective, but at the same time I don't want to get spotted and wrecked myself. But even from this range you can see that the planes are starting to die down. I just focus fire them and I focus on shooting other stuff. In between switching targets, I once again click the next squad, and they start being shot down as well. So this way I can help I first helped the first Shimakaze, now I'm helping the second Shimakaze. You see how quickly the torpedo squad died? Now I'm helping my CV by focusing on these fighters. And at the same time I'm mostly focusing on shooting this Fletcher, but I'm still at the same time helping click down these enemy squads. And you can see just how quickly they die. And the worst part, of course, for the enemy carrier is he doesn't really realize what's going on because I'm sitting in a smoke. So he doesn't actually understand why his planes are dying. Well, he should figure out by this time that, well, this is a no-go zone, no-fly zone in general. All his planes got shot down, absolutely no chance. And this is something that you will see a lot in the Neptune. You will see it not as strongly in the Minotaur. The Neptune is honestly a special case. I think it has by far the strongest anti-air. I think it might be overall in the game at T9. I'm not entirely certain. It probably has, honestly, because at some point I calculated that if a plane comes close enough to you and you're focusing firing him and you're using manual AA as I have, then your AA DPS is something like 1.1k, or was it 1.2k? Something ridiculous. It does such a ridiculous amount of damage, and of course, if you want to be a real prick, you can even spec into the plus 25% additional AA power, at which point your anti-air will just be absolutely absurd. So the Neptune certainly manages extremely well even without having defensive AA. In fact, once again, this is one of the great strengths of this ship. And here I'm also showing off the torpedoes, the 10km ones, which are of course one of the other strengths I mentioned. Anyway, let's move on to the build itself. Alright, build wise, let me give me a second. I have to select my Neptune since I've already sold it and bought the Minotaur. Now, as you might have noticed from the arcs I had in the earlier game, the range isn't that important, not important enough to prioritize it. You do well with 15km range. So absolutely get the hull first. It gives you HP, it gives you rudder shift, it gives you some additional AA, all these things that you want, especially the HP. So definitively get the hull first. Then honestly it's a bit of a toss-up, torpedoes or the range. The torpedo damage seems small, but I'm fairly certain it actually adds a higher percentage of flooding chance if you upgrade them. Now, module upgrade wise, I mean consumable wise, at least get the premium smoke. If you get nothing else premium, I get everything, but I have plenty of money. But if you get nothing else premium, at least get the smoke, because you rely on so much being undetected to actually survive in these ships. And upgrade wise, main armaments mod 1, and AA guns mod 2. I don't rate the aiming system because you spam shells so often you don't really need that small dispersion buff, whereas the AA helps you massively. Main mod battery mod 3 for that gun reload. Once again, you could go AA guns for maximum trolling, but torpedo tubes and gunfire control, like the range, are pretty goddamn useless. I mean, torpedo tubes might be okay, but still, you'd rather take the gun. Damage control, steering gears, and finally, concealment. I don't rate the steering gears mod 3 on this ship at all, because first of all, you don't want to be angling against shells, you want to be unseen the entire time. Angling doesn't help you much when your armor is paper and your citadel is massive. You'll get citadel regardless. Now, one thing, the captain, of course, basics of survivability is the natural first pick. Torpedo armament expertise, you don't actually need expert marksman. Well, you don't need it at all on the Minotaur, but you can get away with not even using it on the Neptune, because the 180 degree is only 18 seconds, which isn't bad at all for a cruiser. So you don't really honestly need it. You can already forego it at this point and just go for the torpedo reload, which is much more useful since your torpedoes start getting very strong at this point. Superintendent, additional heal, hydro, smoke, manual fire control, I like it on both the Minotaur and the Neptune, stealth, and finally vigilance with the last 3 points. Because, well, you spend a lot of time sitting in smoke, so that's a huge buff for you. But yeah, expert marksman is kind of useful on lower tiers, but once you get to these tiers, it starts becoming pretty pointless, honestly, and your points are better spent on buffing the torps. Anyway, that was my Neptune commentary. I hope you guys enjoyed it.